is a morning of jet lag, and we haven't even gone anywhere. And it's likely to be a few long days of feeling like we have jet lag, and we aren't quite sure where we have landed. So let us take a breath together, a breath of peace and reassurance that together we have the resilience to meet whatever challenge comes our way. And the most important word in that sentence that I just said was not peace or resilience or take a breath. It was together. In anxious days, together is better. The choir has an introduction to a song that they will be singing all month for us. So they will sing this song, and then you are invited to join them if the tune catches your heart and you feel like joining in. Thank you.
Let me so love and be an instrument of peace. The words are very simple, and I'd like to try it with us. Make me an instrument of peace. Make me an instrument of peace. Where there is hatred, let me so love and be an instrument of peace. Hatred, let me so love and be an instrument of peace.
We rarely do this anymore, but I invite you to take just a moment to greet the people next to you this morning. Just say good morning and acknowledge that it is good to be here
In a time of chaos or any time to spread joy and peace through music. So I'm inviting everybody to learn this instrument of peace and perhaps to join us in the choir and spread your joy, whether you think you're a great singer or not. We're all together in this. And we have changed our rehearsal time in hopes of attracting people with their busy lives. So we don't meet on Thursday nights anymore. We meet with smiles on our faces, bright and chipper, 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. So all you need to do is come a bit earlier and you can join us, and I hope some of you will give it a try. Thank you very much.
A few more verses will be part of the service on November 20th. So you can come to 2 practices and then be an instrument just a little bit more than you already are. I invite you to say the words of our covenant, which are printed in the order of service. Love is the doctrine of the church. The quest for truth is the sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to respect the nurturing power within all of us. Thus do we covenant. Engaging in this congregation, or a community that's being offered. It's the compliments, complaints, and questions process. And it's already become an acronym, which we just love to do, but if you can just hold on to that great collection of sounds in your mouth for compliments, complaints, and questions. These are the little cards that we'll be using. This is a first draft card. I'm sure we'll go through about 4 drafts of the card. And you can write on these cards and put them in a great big basket that's currently in the middle of the social hour snack table. You won't be able to miss it. This is a new process for us because we wanted to make sure that there were good mechanisms in the congregation for getting and giving feedback and making sure that there's good response back and forth. Well, you know, it says here, for the last year we were thinking about how to have a good process, but we've been thinking about this for years. And last year we went out and found a website called How to Complain at Church. Which I thought was delightful, actually. And the process described in this particular site was, they have a great big book, and if you have a compliment or a question or a complaint, you write it in the book, and then you sign your name, and then someone gets back to you. And we decided not to have a great big book. We instead have made these cards, and we also have envelopes into which the cards fit. So if you want to write something on here and you don't want everyone to read it, and then just drop it in the ballot box, I mean the big basket in the middle of the snack table. Yeah. So there are two things that we did keep from that original red page called How to Complain in Church. One is, whatever you write on this, we need you to write your name on it as well, because that's how the feedback loop keeps working, that everyone knows what everyone is thinking and talking about. And also because I will read all of these cards, a member of the board will read all of these cards, and someone from the program council will read all of these cards each week. And then someone will get back to you. It might be one of the three of us. It might be Yvonne. It might turn out that someone from the knitting ministry is the person who needs to get back to you because you've put in a question about comfort shawls. So you'll hear back from someone, and the three of us will help everyone figure out how the lines of communication are working, because as you may have noticed, it's not always completely clear. It's a lot of change in the world, and there's a lot of change here, and so we're hoping that this will help us all learn the lines of communication again and make sure that we go back and forth as we need to. And you should also know that if you turn in one of these cards that says, "I love the yellow walls in the community room," on the very same week that you turn that in, it is almost guaranteed that someone is going to turn in a card that says, "I really wish those walls were purple." And so that will be part of our collective conversation about how we do things and how we make our choices. It is, of course, a little iffy starting this off when we're all a little on the edge with the election and the ballot boxes. What, 48 hours away? Is that the right? Which means it's also the perfect time, because elections are the ultimate way of getting feedback, and this is a proposal for a more constant and steady way of getting feedback in our community. And it means that people will always be reading these and be in conversation with each other, and sometimes it will just be a one-on-one conversation. And sometimes this is a way for us to find out if we need to have a larger conversation about community life, because part of being in community is always sorting ourselves out again. So when I started this out, I thought we would have just a little basket and that I would nail it to the wall so that you would be able to find it. And it would never wander off. Sometimes things wander off around here. But then it was suggested that maybe that was a little too subtle and that we needed to really make it obvious and right in the center of community life, especially as we're getting to know this as a new process. So there's the big basket in the middle of the snack table. And we'll figure out as we go along if we need to keep that big basket in the middle of things so that we remember that this is what we're doing now, or if affixing it to the wall so it doesn't wander off and is something we can rely on is how we'll do it. So that could be your first compliment, question, or complaint that you put into the basket. I should also say, we accept all questions, but you need to know that not all questions have answers. We will do the best we can. And we will certainly let you know that we have heard you. That's the most important thing. Let's see how it works. Lindsay Jean in the back with her little one. And she will lead our young people and their leaders out. This reading is a short excerpt from an interview with David Brooks and E.J. Dionne. Now, some of you may hear them on the radio, some of you may read them in the newspaper of your choice, some of you may be wondering who I'm talking about. This interview took place in On Being, which is a radio show that's mostly about spiritual and religious matters. And David Brooks and E.J. Dionne are political commentators. David Brooks in the New York Times and E.J. Dionne is in the Washington Post. And they're everywhere, as far as I can tell, they're everywhere. David Brooks is the conservative voice in their ongoing conversation and or debate, and E.J. Dionne is the more liberal voice. And what I'm going to read you is actually mostly from Krista Tippett, who is the host of the show On Being. Have some of you heard this program? Seen some nodding. If you haven't heard it, I recommend it to you. It took place in October, and it's, well, I should say, I found it very useful. So Krista Tippett is addressing her two guests in this. She says, EJ, I want to come back to end this with the question that you raised in your book called Sold Out, and that's S-O-U-L-E-D, sold out. Or a challenge that in the post-religious right era, we need to develop a more capacious imagination about the proper role of religion in political life. And she said, I would add public life. I actually want to read some words of Senator John Danforth, possibly an answer he might give to this question if he were here with us. And now these are the words of Senator John Danforth. If there was a Christian agenda for politics, what should it be? I, for one, cannot be certain. Then one might ask, what does faith bring to politics if not an agenda? For me, it brings a struggle to do God's will that always falls short of the goal. It leavens the competing self-interests of politics with the yeast of the commandment to love. But it seldom fulfills the commandment to love. Faith makes us better participants in politics, but not the custodians of God's politics. And then Krista Tippett asks her guests, and I think asks all of us, to give her a sense of what this more spacious imagination about faith in politics might look like.
Peace begin in my heart, peace begin in my heart, peace begin in my heart, so I become the word shalom. Peace begin in my heart, peace begin in my heart, peace begin in my heart, so I become the word shalom.
We arrived at the time for Joys and Sorrows, which is when I noticed that I just skipped the opening hymn. So, is it a joy or a sorrow? Well, the hymn that's listed in your order of service is the Spanish words for "Nothing Will Trouble Me." And sometime yesterday I thought, we can't sing that. It's just not true. You can't be authentic about singing that song right now. So I thought, okay, we'll just change it to "Staying on the Side of Love," because that's good. Let's try to do that, right? Apparently I'm struggling even to do that. But this moment for Joys and Sorrows is when we acknowledge that we're navigating this territory together. That things are troubling us, whether it's the world around us or very particular things in our own personal lives. And also our ability to stand on the side of love and the strength that we get when we do that together. And I know that some of you are having moments of that these weeks when you are together and can see what that does for us. So let us take a moment to indeed stand on the side of love by listening to each other. We may be listening to some silence between us, and we may be getting to hear joys and sorrows put into words if you have words, come and stand with me up front and share your story.
Hello, I'm Sylvia Foster, and I had a great joy in our household this week. I was hearing Scott Simon on NPR reporting out on how a good game can lift our spirits, so I'd like to quote from him. In great cities so divided by race, class, and rivalries, championship teams can inspire us and help us walk a little lighter. So, when many Americans have been saying they're discouraged by politics, the World Series between two teams from the heart of America that had gone the longest without winning gave our country a few days of grace and light. Either the Cubs or the Indians could have won right up to almost the last seconds of the last game. So I'm here to say that I agree with Scott Simon. I found it so remarkable that both teams and all of their fans were so respectful of one another. There was no bench clearing, no fighting. And Kids All Over America saw that talented people still make mistakes and fail, and they got to see that the true test in life is learning how to come back.
Hi, I'm Frank. I've missed many Sundays recently, and that probably will continue, but it's always nice when I'm here. One of the more recent ones that I missed was October 16th, which was my 80th birthday. And that means I'm old enough to have seen one of the games in the 1948 World Series, the last time Cleveland won the World Championship.
A joy and we'll call it a concern. The joy is for the community and the building, the chimney has started coming down. I mean, on purpose. So that's the joy. The sort of concern is, I said, I would take on that job if it was 20 years ago. The concern is I've taken on the job. If you would like to see what the scaffold looks like, go over there and look up. It's pretty impressive.
My name is Bob, and I have a joy and a concern. My joy is that the hiking club from our high school went up Mount Major yesterday. 11 students went up the mountain, 11 students came down the mountain. I also had a friend, a colleague from high school, and he's a poet, and he's an excellent hiker. He's a member of the Appalachian Mountain Club. He's also a conservative. And so I was talking on our way home. We had lovely conversations on the way up, on the way home. They kind of weaved into areas that, you know, was my mind always saying, do not go there, do not go there. And yet Kendra was urging us to engage. So we did, and we talked about the things that troubled him. And he was trying to enlighten me, and I was not necessarily enlightened, but I did listen. And I responded to his questions that he had about what I would do, what I would not do, that kind of thing. And in the end, we really didn't reach a common ground. I could see that he was getting more and more flustered. So by the time we left, I said, you're my good friend, Stephen, and if you believe strongly in something, I hope that you would continue to do that thing, only because you believe in it. And we left it in a very kind of a calm, and I think you appreciated that comment. Because I won't reach common ground with his thoughts, but I want to be his friend, and his friendship is more important than our politics. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Roy, and I just wanted to share that we helped our niece move into her own apartment, and I got to see her stand up straight and smile and laugh, which is something I hadn't seen for quite a long time. So that's a joy.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Berrien, and amidst the difficulties of our times, I just wanted to mention, for those that hadn't heard, that our daughter Julie had a long-awaited baby boy a couple of months ago, and had a pregnancy that had some difficulties, but all turned out well, and it was a joy in this world of ours.
Thank you for sharing your lives, and I thank you for your listening to each other. In that imaginative space where we begin to think of fresh ways for politics and religion to be in conversation, I offer you this poem that I shared with you about a year ago when the Pope visited. I sent it out in print then. It's interesting to think about this Pope and his relationship to religion, politics, and power in the world. The Pope is wandering around this planet, holding people's faces in his hands, touching their foreheads, cradling their cheeks, for a moment treasuring them, blessing them. He met with the man third in line to be the leader of the free world, and that man wept and resigned his contentious post, as if he had been waiting for someone to tell him, "You have nothing to prove. You are beloved." This Pope does not look like he believes in original sin. I wonder what kind of upheaval it would cause if original sin resigned its post in the face of so much bold treasuring of life. The woman the Pope doesn't know from Eve runs up to him in the street. He embraces her and then lets her go. She is golden in his eyes. As she goes toward him, he sees the gold in her. And as he releases her back to the world, she catches her reflection in his eye for a moment, and she sees it too. Now she understands. This Pope might declare original sin to have been an error. Really, no one can be blamed for partaking of knowledge. In fact, if anyone is to be blamed for this, it would be God themselves who put it all out there. The swirling galaxies, the crisp of ripe fruit, the tender wonders of the body, and the humans struggling to see beyond their muddle. Like the colorblind man wearing special sunglasses that let him see cerulean, rose petal pink, new frog green. And then he is weeping over the color of his children's clothes and robin egg eyes. This God might in fact apologize. There is so much just beyond the edge that we can see. The horizon of the universe keeps receding. The smallest particles seem to be made of something smaller. The apple comes easily from the branch when it's ripe. No one is to blame for tasting it, dripping with the sugar of September sun. Hold it in your hands. Cherish it. this time of quiet be a time we can cherish our world. We talked about planning and leading worship. And we had a forum one evening for the 3 women who are running for the presidency of the Unitarian Universalist Association. So we have 3 candidates for the president of this association, which is an interesting thing to have. And they are all women. And when the national election is over, I will be sure you get some information about these 3 candidates. They have different experiences to offer, and they have some different priorities. And there was a general sense among the 100+ ministers who were attending this workshop and forum that any of these 3 people would be good leaders for the Unitarian Universalist Association. We might be pulling for one set of priorities or another, but really, we respected all of them and could stay in conversation with each other about what we were hoping for. It was interesting to observe the political process in such a different context. And as I sat through the forum and the workshop, I was constantly aware that I was not in North Dakota, responding to a call that had come out for clergy to come to Standing Rock and stand in solidarity with the native people who are opposing the pipeline there. The call went out and they said they hoped that 100 clergy would come, and 500 came, and 30 or more of them were Unitarian Universalists. As is often the case, the Unitarian Universalists were well represented in this matter. On my drive back and forth from this ministers' meeting, I listened to the On Being interview that I read a little piece from for you. I listened to it over and over and over and over again. I needed to hear those calm and reflective voices as they began to reimagine our shared political and public life. One of the things that strikes me about this interview is that these 2 men have spent their lives as political commentators. That's what they do. They pay attention to politics and they tell us what they think about politics. And yet Krista Tippett, who is the queen of the spiritual and the ephemeral, has interviewed them more than once and has come to call them public theologians. And this is a title that they both seem pleased with. And then this week, David Brooks, who is apparently the conservative voice in the duo, published a column in the New York Times entitled, "Read Buber, Not the Polls." Did any of you see this column? But if you don't know who Buber is, it would inspire an even higher degree of curiosity. He's trying to get people to read the works of Martin Buber, who is a Jewish theologian about 100 years ago, who talked a lot about human beings, what it means to be human, and what it means to be human in relationship. Indeed, he is one of many theologians who says that we have our humanity when we are in relationship, when we remember that we are together. Martin Buber says there are 2 kinds of relationships, and this is all in the political commentary column. You want to go and read this later. So Martin Buber says there are 2 kinds of relationships, I, it, and I, thou. I, it, is the relationship that you probably have with the cashier at the grocery store. You say hello, you do the debit card thing, you're pleasant enough, but don't exchange very much personal information. And really, that's fine. But Buber says that many of our relationships in our lives could be I-thou relationships and are not. I-thou relationships are the ones in which we're open-hearted with each other, in which we take some time and listen and recognize each other, in which we acknowledge our confusions and see each other with more complexity and tenderness. So 100 or so years ago, Martin Buber was noticing that we were missing each other in the world. That there were many more chances for us to see each other deeply than we were taking. Which is why I think he persists as a theologian that is studied and read, and why David Brooks thinks that we should stop checking the polls and go and read Martin Buber and think about how we can practice that in our lives. So Brooks's commentary on politics in America 1 week before the election was that. And he concludes that column by saying, today, America is certainly awash in distrust. So many people tell stories of betrayal. So many leaders model combativeness, isolation, and distrust. But the only way we get beyond depressing years like this one is at the level of intimacy. If Americans reconnect with the living center of the national story, and they rebuild thous at every level. As I talk to you and lots of people these days, the word weary comes up again and again. This campaign, but certainly political process before this campaign, has worn away at every person in this country, if not the world. And I think it has infected all of us with anxiety, reactiveness, and distrust. It feels like people everywhere are weary and a little jumpy, regardless of political affiliations. It feels like people are quick to take offense, quick to feel like they haven't been heard or understood. The rebuilding that Brooks and Dion talk about is deep, and it happens in one-on-one relationships. In their interview with Krista Tippett, they describe some of the one-on-one miracles that they have seen. And we've participated in some of those in this congregation. And both of these political commentators and public theologians say that the political reality doesn't seem to be the place where our current societal problems will be solved. I don't think they mean, nor do I, that we should ignore or step away from politics. I would say that the tensions in our society are playing out in politics, and that is why things are so contentious and stuck in the political world. And so when we do the more subtle work of relationships, that work that I've been talking about for a few weeks, we will begin to shift society, and then things will begin to shift in politics as well, and we will be able to make decisions together again. I've been asking that we stop speaking poorly of those with whom we disagree, and I hear that you're out there experimenting with that. To stop the cycle of shaming each other, shaming ourselves sometimes, and backing each other into a corner all the time so that everyone feels defensive. The practice of being curious about what other people have to say, and maybe more importantly, what they experience. listening to the layers of what they have to say. E.J. Dionne in the On Being interview says one of his favorite quotes about politics is from a writer named Glenn Tinder, who talked about our need to create the attentive society. The attentive society, which is a society in which all of us acknowledge the need both to give and receive help on the road to truth. It's an interesting stance with which to engage, well, everything. To think there's something to receive and there's something to give in every interaction. That is another way of describing, I think, this I-thou relationship, in which there's an openness and a waiting to find that thing we can exchange. I think for politically engaged religious folks, we have an essential role to play in this next phase of our country, regardless of the outcome of the election on Tuesday, or however long that plays out. Because I think we can keep our minds in two places at the same time. One, on the political process, on the engagement with the governance of our country, and also with the more subtle one-on-one relational work that is where the shifts may begin to happen in society. The attentive society may start here and travel over to politics. So we can all begin to do that shifting by going out and trying to have I-thou relationships with people we are not used to having I-thou relationships with. Working toward being more like the Pope. It's not always true that Unitarian Universalists encourage each other to act like the Pope. And he is such a gem of leadership in the world. He is so clear with everyone about what he thinks and how he got there. And he's so full of the cherishing of life, so willing to speak up for the deep, deep love that he has for the world. And then to speak up and speak against the things that prevent that cherishing. But it's all about cherishing. It sounds so simple, and we know. It is not easy. It is not easy to love like that all the time. It is not easy to listen deeply like that all the time. And I think he listens to the people around him, to the larger world, and to his own innermost heart. And so I think that we have a really important role to play in the world right now. We are part of the reimagining of the new relationship between religion and politics, between the life of love and the life of power, and how those things come together. You are that reimagining. There are lots of ways that you have been doing this work for years, and it's become more important every day, and it will keep being more important, regardless of the outcome of the election. So any ways that we can practice listening to our inner lives, to each other, any ways we can deepen our reserves to go out and have encounters with people that we have not been listening to enough in the world. Anytime we can engage that creative imagination about what's possible in our own relationships and in the world, we begin to get ourselves towards something which we can't see now, which is frightening, to not be able to see that thing that we are working toward. But I think it is in our imaginations to create it. We gather here each week to take care of ourselves and take care of each other, and part of doing that is taking care of this place. This month we have the theme of fire in our worship life. And in the past couple of weeks, we've replaced the furnace in the parsonage, the stove in the kitchen here, and the thermostats, which regulate the furnaces in this building. So apparently the fire theme is everywhere. sing this hymn. Alice in this room. But take that spark, take our Unitarian Universalist history, take the strength of this community with you out into the world, and share the love you have. Please join in our unison benediction. The words are printed in the order of service. Go in peace.
Speak truth. Give thanks each day. Respect the earth and all creatures, for they are alive like you. Care for your body. It is a wondrous gift. Be gentle with yourself. Live simply. Be of service. Be guided by your faith and not your fear. Go lightly on your way. Walk in a sacred manner.